Hello learners, I am Durva Kishore Mandrekar, Assistant Professor in English at Ganpat Parsekar College of Education, and I am welcoming you to, to the course titled Empowering Verses Exploring Feminist Narratives in Indian and American Poetry. Sylvia Plath was an American poet, novelist, and short story writer known for her confessional style and exploration of themes like mental illness, death, and the complexities of human condition. Her most famous works include the poetry collection Ariel and the semi-autobiographical novel The Bell Jar. Plath's writing is characterized by its raw emotion, vivid imagery, and intense introspection, making her one of the most influential poets of the 20th century. Tragically, she struggled with depression throughout her life and died by suicide at the age of 30, leaving behind a legacy of powerful and haunting literature. Feminist literary criticism examines how literature reflects and perpetuates gender inequalities, challenging traditional portrayals of women and advocating for gender equality. It analyzes texts through the lens of representation, questioning whether female characters are accurately depicted and whether narratives perpetuate harmful stereotypes. This perspective also scrutinizes how patriarchal systems shape characters' behaviors and relationships while considering the intersectionality of gender with race, class, sexuality, and ability. Feminist critics advocate for the recognition and inclusion of women writers in the literary canon and seek to amplify diverse voices. Overall, feminist literary theory aims to deconstruct gender binaries, empower women, and foster a more inclusive and equitable literary landscape. The Widow by Sylvia Plath is a poignant and introspective poem that explores the experience of grief and complex emotions that accompany loss. The poem delves into the psyche of a widow who grapples with the absence of her husband and emptiness that remains in his wake. Plath employs vivid imagery and stark language to convey the widow's sense of isolation and longing as well as her struggle to come to terms with her new reality. The poem opens with a striking depiction of widow sitting alone in her darkened house, surrounded by the remnants of her husband's presence. The imagery of the frosted glass partition serves as a metaphor for the emotional barrier and separates her from the outside world, highlighting her sense of detachment and alienation. Plath skillfully captures the widow's inner turmoil as she navigates the overwhelming emptiness of her surroundings, vividly portraying her despair and longing for her lost companion. As the poem progresses, the widow's grief intensifies, manifesting in a series of haunting images that reflect her inner turmoil. She imagines her husband's absence as a physical presence, feeling his absence like a casket lid, a visceral reminder of the finality of death. Plath masterfully conveys the widow's sense of disorientation and despair, capturing the intensity of her emotions with raw and evocative language. Despite the overwhelming weight of her grief, the widow finds a sense of solace in the memories of her husband, clinging to the remnants of their life together as a source of comfort and consolation. The poem concludes with a poignant acknowledgement of the widow's resilience in the face of loss as she bravely confronts the reality of her husband's absence and begins to navigate her own path forward. In The Widow, Sylvia Plath offers a powerful exploration of grief and mourning, capturing the profound emotional impact of loss with sensitivity and depth through its vivid imagery and evocative language. The poem invites readers to empathize with the widow's experience and contemplate the universal themes of love, loss, and resilience. The Widow by Sylvia Plath intertwines themes of loss, grief, and female autonomy. Through vivid imagery and emotive language, the poem portrays the widow's journey through sorrow following her husband's death. Despite her profound grief, she exhibits resilience and agency, finding solace in memories and confronting her emotions independently. The widow's solitude symbolizes her autonomy, highlighting her strength as an individual apart from her relationship. Overall, the poem celebrates the resilience of women in facing adversity and affirms the power of self-discovery amidst loss. The Munich Mannequins by Sylvia Plath is a haunting and surreal poem that explores themes of perfection, emptiness, and dehumanizing effects of consumer culture. The poem begins with a reflection on the idea of perfection, describing it as terrible because it is sterile and incapable of creation. The speaker then moves to a scene in Munich where mannequins in a shop window are depicted as cold and lifeless, devoid of thought or feeling. Plath uses vivid imagery to convey the artificiality of the mannequins and the emptiness of their existence, contrasting their frozen beauty with the chaos and unpredictability of the world outside. The poem concludes with a sense of isolation and detachment as the snow falls silently and the city sleeps, its inhabitants lost in a world of materialism and conformity. The poem can be interpreted as a critique of consumer culture and obsession with superficial appearances. The mannequins symbolize the dehumanizing effects of perfectionism and the pressure to conform to social standards of beauty and success. Plath suggests that this pursuit of perfection ultimately leads to emptiness and alienation as individuals become disconnected from their own humanity and the world around them. Through its vivid imagery and evocative language, the Munich Mannequins invites readers to reflect on the nature of identity, authenticity, and true meaning of life in a world dominated by illusion and empty promises. In The Munich Mannequins by Sylvia Plath, objectification and disillusionment are prevalent themes that underscore the poem's critique of consumer culture. The mannequins in the shop window serve as stark symbols of objectification, stripped of individuality and reduced to mere objects of display. Plath portrays them as naked and bald feet in their furs, a belt in their furs, emphasizing their artificiality and commodification of human beauty. By likening them to orange lollies on silver sticks, she further reinforces their dehumanization and the reduction of complex human beings to consumable products. The poem also explores the theme of disillusionment as the speaker reflects on the emptiness and futility of perfection and materialism. Despite their outward beauty, the mannequins are depicted as intolerable without mind, highlighting the hollowness of their existence. Plath suggests that the pursuit of perfection and the adherence to societal norms ultimately lead to disillusionment and a sense of alienation from one's true self. The setting of wartime Munich adds another layer of disillusionment as the mannequins stand as silent witnesses to the chaos and destruction of the world outside. The contrast between their frozen beauty and the unpredictability of the surrounding environment serves to underscore the emptiness and fragility of human existence. Overall, the Munich Mannequins offers a stark portrayal of objectification and disillusionment in a society obsessed with appearances and materialism. Through its vivid imagery and evocative language, the poem invites readers to reflect on the dehumanizing effects of consumer culture and the quest for perfection, ultimately urging them to seek fulfillment and meaning beyond superficial illusions. The Applicant by Sylvia Plath is a cutting critique of societal expectations, gender roles, and the commodification of identity and relationship. The poem presents a dialogue between an anonymous speaker and a potential applicant framed within the context of a transactional exchange reminiscent of a job interview or a marriage proposal. The speaker begins by interrogating the applicant's physical attributes, asking if they possess any imperfections or disabilities that would render them unfit for the role being offered. This inquiry highlights society's tendency to judge individuals based on superficial criteria and reinforces the notion of conformity to certain standards. As the poem progresses, the speaker presents the applicant with various options, symbolized by tangible objects such as a hand, a suit, and eventually a living doll-like figure. These objects represent societal expectations and roles assigned to individuals based on their gender, appearance, and perceived utility. The repeated question, will you marry it, underscores the theme of conformity and the pressure to adhere to societal norms even at the expense of individual autonomy and authenticity. The emphasis on the doll's capabilities, sewing, cooking, talking, further reinforces the idea of a woman being reduced to domestic roles and expected to fulfill certain societal expectations. The final stanza reveals the black reality of applicants' fate as they are metaphorically transformed into a lifeless, objectified entity devoid of agency or identity. The poem's concluding lines, will you marry it, marry it, marry it, serves as a chilling indictment of the oppressive forces that constrain individuals within society. In summary, The Applicant by Sylvia Plath offers a scathing commentary on the dehumanizing effects of societal expectations and the pressure to conform to prescribed roles and identities. Through its vivid imagery and incisive language, the poem exposes the absurdity and cruelty of a world that reduces individuals to mere commodities devoid of agency or authenticity. In The Applicant by Sylvia Plath, there are clear subversion of expectations and instances of dehumanization throughout the poem. One notable subversion of expectation occurs through the unconventional dialogue format reminiscent of a job interview or a marriage proposal. The speaker's probing question about physical imperfections and disabilities at the beginning of the poem seem to set up the reader's anticipation of typical criteria for acceptance and desirability. However, as the poem unfolds, it becomes evident that these questions serve to highlight society's superficial standards and the dehumanizing nature of such evaluation. The repeated refrain, will you marry it, underscores the dehumanizing effects of societal pressure and conformity. The emphasis on marriage as a transactional arrangement reinforces the idea of individuals being objectified and reduced to roles that fulfill societal expectations rather than their own desires and aspirations. In all three poems, The Widow, The Munich Mannequins, and The Applicant, feminist elements can be identified through their exploration of gender roles, power dynamics, and societal expectations. The Widow delves into the experience of grief and loss, particularly from a female perspective. It examines the widow's struggle with loneliness, independence, and societal pressures following her husband's death. The Munich Mannequins offers a critique of consumer culture and the objectification of women. The portrayal of mannequins as lifeless objects in a shop window symbolizes the dehumanization of women in a society obsessed with superficial beauty and materialism. The Applicant explores the dehumanizing effects of societal expectations and gender roles. The poem presents a dialogue between a speaker and a potential applicant, framed within the context of a transactional exchange akin to a job interview or marriage proposal. Through its portrayal of applicants' objectification and reduction to a lifeless entity devoid of agency or identity, the poem critiques the ways in which women are often confined to prescribed roles and expectations within patriarchal society. Critiques of Sylvia Plath's feminist perspective include concerns about these poems addresses feminist themes in distinct ways, offering insights into complexities of gender dynamics and challenges faced by women in navigating societal norms and expectations. Plath's writings revolutionized feminist literature and it inspired future generations to address issues such as gender inequality and female experiences. Her bold and raw portrayal of female emotions empowered a new wave of feminist authors, and it was more about a confessional mode wherein many female authors thought of expressing them and expressing their experiences. Uh, Critics of Sylvia Plath's feminist perspective include concerns about limited portrayals of female characters, potential overshadowing of other aspects of feminism by emphasizing female suffering, and controversies surrounding her personal life, particularly her marriage to Ted Hughes and struggle with mental illness. Sylvia Plath's poems hold significant importance from a feminist standpoint due to their bold exploration of women's experiences, the critique of patriarchal constraints, and the portrayal of female resilience and agency. Despite critics and controversies surrounding her work, Plath's contributions to feminist literature remain influential, sparking important decisions about gender, power dynamics, and societal expectations. Her poems continue to resonate with readers, inspiring ongoing reflection and analysis within feminist discourse. Thank you.